As he said goodbye to his daughter in the coffin, the father noticed a tear and was shocked. He panicked, and what they discovered next was incredible. Before we begin the story, if you like these kinds of stories, subscribe to the Morgue Secrets channel. This is one of the most moving stories we have ever told. Many people cried after seeing it and began to think differently about their own lives. I am sure you will also feel something special. The small church in Springfield was filled with candles, softly illuminating the white walls already marked by time. The strong smell of flowers mingled with the incense that rose slowly, creating a soft, almost suffocating mist. The silence weighed more than any sound. Only the muffled crying of someone who could not hold back any longer could be heard from time to time. In the middle of the room, the white coffin, too small, rested in front of the altar. It was impossible to look at it without feeling heartache. Inside was Lucy, only 9 years old. Her face looked peaceful, as if she were only asleep. It was hard to believe that this girl with bright eyes, who just 2 days earlier had been running around the square, was now lying there, motionless. Raymond Ortega, her father, remained standing in front of the coffin. He was 40 years old, but he looked like he was carrying 100 on his shoulders. His eyes red, his beard unshaven, his clothes simple and wrinkled. He couldn't accept what was happening. 2 nights earlier, the fever came on suddenly, burning his daughter's little body. Within hours, Lucy was admitted to the hospital, and before he could react, she was no longer breathing. The doctor said there was nothing they could do, and she was gone. Now there, in the heavy silence of the wake, Raymond seemed to be reliving the same moment over and over again. The hospital room, his daughter's cold body, the feeling of helplessness, and now that coffin. Camila, the mother, was sitting on a bench nearby, her eyes swollen from crying. She had her face in her hands, her body curled up as if she wanted to hide inside her own pain. Neighbors and relatives tried to comfort her, but no words could penetrate that wall of suffering. Raymond approached slowly. He touched the light wood of the coffin with his fingertips, as if afraid of waking someone. His chest rose and fell rapidly, as if there were not enough air inside that church. "My girl," he whispered with a broken voice, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. He tried to remember a happy moment, but the only thing that came to mind was the last image. His daughter writhing in fever, saying, "Dad, don't leave me." That broke him inside. Outside, the church bell tolled, signaling that it was time to go to the cemetery. In Springfield, it was customary to bury the dead quickly before the heat made everything more difficult. People accepted that, signaling that they would soon be leaving for the cemetery. In Springfield, it was customary to bury the dead quickly before the heat made everything more difficult. People accepted this rush as tradition, but for Raymond, it was torture. He felt like they were taking his daughter away from him before he could say goodbye. He knelt in front of the coffin and ran his trembling hand over the glass lid as if caressing her face. "Forgive me, Lucy," he whispered, almost without a voice. "I should have done more. I should have protected you." Silence was the only answer, just the slight flicker of a candle beside her. Camila raised her tear-filled eyes and said softly, "Raymond, we have to let her rest." He turned his face away, swallowing the anger that came with the pain. It wasn't anger at anyone in particular, but at life, at fate, at God, at, "How can I let her rest, Camila?" he asked hoarsely. "How do I say goodbye to a 9-year-old girl?" The people around him bowed their heads in respect for his pain. Some were crying too. Raymond remained there kneeling, as if time had stopped. The world around him seemed far away. All that existed was that coffin, that little girl, and the heart of a father who didn't know how to go on living without her. And so, amid the smell of wilted flowers and flickering candles, Raymond walked slowly, as if each step weighed a ton. The wake had been going on for hours, but he still hadn't been able to say goodbye properly. The white coffin was still there in the middle of the room, surrounded by flowers, but it looked so small, so cruel to contain a life that had barely begun. He stood in front of the glass, covering his daughter's face. Silence filled the room. For a moment, even Camila's sobs disappeared. It was just him and Lucy. The man's eyes burned, not from sleep, but from crying so much. He ran his hand over his unshaven beard and swallowed hard. His mouth trembled when he spoke. "My little girl, my light. You should be playing in the street right now. You should be running, laughing. Not here, not like this." The memory of the hospital came back like a blow. Her little body being rushed away, the doctors trying, the machines beeping, and then that deadly silence. They said there was nothing more they could do. He believed them. He accepted it. Now, standing in front of her, it all seemed like a mistake. Raymond rested his forehead against the cold glass. Tears fell uncontrollably. "Forgive me," he whispered. He stood there motionless, breathing deeply, trying to etch her little face into his memory forever. Her dark, well-combed hair, her skin too pale, her lips almost colorless. A doll. No, it couldn't be just that. She was his daughter. And then, in the midst of that heavy silence, something happened. Raymond blinked quickly, thinking he was seeing things, but no. Her eyelashes moved. For a second, it was as if her little body had responded to her father's call. His heart began to beat fast. He moved closer, almost sticking to the glass. His eyes opened wide. He said softly, his voice choked, "Lucy, my girl, can you hear me?" He felt a lump in his throat. Sweat ran down his forehead, even though the room was cold. He looked around, but no one seemed to have seen. Only him. Only him. And then, as if fate wanted to play with a father's mind, a tear rolled down the corner of her eye. Slow, real, shining in the soft candlelight. Raymond took a step back, breathing fast, his chest rising and falling uncontrollably. He brought his hand to his mouth. "My God," he whispered, almost voiceless. "No, it can't be." He looked again, trying to believe. The world disappeared. There was no longer a wake, no people, no flowers. There was only that face, those closed eyes, and the certainty that something impossible had just happened in front of him. Raymond didn't know if he was going crazy, if he should scream, or if he should fall right there. He only knew that his heart, which until a few seconds ago had been dead along with his daughter, was now his heart was alive like never before. His hand was shaking so much that he could barely lean on the edge of the coffin. He brought his face closer with his eyes wide open, breathing quickly, as if the air had left the room. "Lucy," he whispered with a broken voice. "My girl, can you hear me?" And suddenly despair turned into a scream. "She's alive, my daughter. She's alive." The sound echoed through the funeral home hum, like an explosion. People looked at each other in confusion. Some stood up, others approached, trying to calm him down. "Raymond, please," said a neighbor, grabbing his arm. "Are you nervous? Don't say that." He pulled away forcefully, his voice even louder, filled with anguish. "I saw her. She cried. Didn't you see? My God, she's alive." Camila jumped up from the bench, her eyes, red from crying, opened wide with fear. She ran to the coffin, pushing those in front of her. "What are you saying, Raymond?" she shouted, her voice broken. "No, don't play with that." He pointed, agitated, almost out of breath. "Look, Camila. Look at her face. There are tears. She's not dead." Camila leaned over her daughter, her hands trembling as she grabbed the edge of the coffin. Her lips trembled, unable to say anything. "No, it can't be," she murmured, breathing very quickly. "Oh, Holy Virgin." The neighbors tried to intervene. Two men grabbed Raymond by the shoulders, trying to pull him away. "Raymond, please, you're broken with grief, my friend. Don't do this to us or to yourself," said one of them, trying to calm him down. But Raymond struggled, crying, shouting louder. "You're blind. I saw her. She cried. I saw her. She's my daughter. She's asking for help." Camila put her hand over her mouth. "I'm strong," she whispered. Her face turned pale. Her whole body was shaking. She looked at Lucy as if she were seeing a miracle and a nightmare at the same time. "Ramon," she said, crying, her legs weak. And if it was true, the wake turned into chaos. Some prayed, others shouted to call the priest, that it was a sign from God. But nothing mattered to Raymond anymore. He only saw his daughter there with a tear on her face, as if she were calling him back. Raymond didn't think twice. In the midst of the commotion, he pushed away the hands that tried to stop him, opened the lid of the coffin, and took Lucy in his arms. The girl's body felt too fragile, too cold, but that trace of life he had seen burned inside him. like fire. "My daughter is alive," he shouted as he crossed the room. People began to scream, some in shock, others praying aloud. Camila cried in panic, not knowing whether to run after him or faint right there. "Raymond, for God's sake," she cried, covering her face with her hands. "And what if you're wrong?" But he didn't listen. Or maybe he did, but he didn't care. He ran out of the church with Lucy clutched to his chest, as if he were afraid someone would take her away from him again. Outside, the bright sun blinded him. Raymond opened the car door with difficulty, laid his daughter on Camila's lap, and got behind the wheel like a madman. "Hold her, Camila. Hold her tight," he said with a trembling voice. "I'm taking her to the health center. She's going to live. She's going to live." The engine roared, and the car shot down the dirt road. The stones hit the tires, raising dust. Raymond accelerated like he had never done before, overtaking carts and motorcycles, ignoring signs, horns, everything. Sweat ran down his face, his hands firmly gripping the steering wheel. Camila, with her daughter in her arms, was shaking. He caressed Lucy's face, murmuring prayers almost without a voice. Our Father," he repeated between whispers. "Please, sir, don't take her away." Raymond glanced back, watching the scene, his heart tightening. "Don't let go, Camila. Don't let go," he said. At every turn, it seemed as if the car was going to veer off the road. The trip that normally took 40 minutes, he made in a flash. The speedometer climbed, the engine groaned, but nothing could stop him. "Hang on, my baby. Hang on, please," he murmured, as if Lucy could hear him. 18 minutes later, the car slammed on the brakes in front of the health center. Raymond got out, almost knocking over the door, took his daughter in his arms, and ran inside shouting, "Help her! Please check her! My daughter is alive!" Nurse Martha, a middle-aged woman, ran toward him, confused by the scene. "Sir, please calm down," she said, trying to understand. "What's going on?" Raymond trembled desperately. "She's not dead. I swear she's not dead. Check her." Martha looked at the girl, hesitated for a second, but immediately put her fingers on her neck. Her expression changed immediately. She turned pale, her eyes wide open. "My God," she whispered. "She has a pulse." Raymond almost fell to his knees. I told you! I told you!" Camila put her hands over her mouth and cried loudly, sobbing like never before. Suddenly, the small room became a whirlwind. 2 doctors came running in, bringing equipment, asking for a stretcher, asking for space. They laid Lucy on the bed, connected machines, adjusted masks, everything so fast that it was impossible to understand. Raymond watched without blinking, his hands on his face, murmuring softly, "Thank you, thank you." Martha looked at him, her voice still trembling. "Sir, yes, she's alive, but she's in a deep coma. Something made her body stop reacting." Raymond didn't hear the rest. He could only hear those words. "She's alive." He fell to his knees on the cold floor with tears falling like rain as the sound of machines filled the room. Camila leaned against the wall, exhausted, crying as if all the air had been knocked out of her body. And in that moment, amid the chaos, the rush, and the fear, the impossible had happened. Lucy was still there. Life, however fragile, was still hanging on. Hours passed since the doctors confirmed that Lucy was alive. Raymond paced back and forth in the small health center, his hands sweaty and his heart beating so hard that he could hear it in his ears. Camila didn't leave her daughter's side, caressing her face, waiting for any sign. Nurse Martha appeared with a chart in her hands, but her face said more than any paper. She took a deep breath before speaking. "Mr. Raymond, we need to talk." He approached her, distraught. "Please, tell me she'll wake up soon." Martha looked down. The tests showed something strange. The girl didn't get sick from a fever. We found traces of a compound in her blood, something that paralyzes the nervous system. It's rare, synthetic. It's not something you find easily. Raymond was speechless. He opened his eyes in surprise. "You're saying that someone did this to her?" Camila raised her head, tears falling again. "It can't be," she whispered, her voice trembling. "My daughter poisoned." Martha hesitated, but didn't hide it. "We don't know yet. It could have been an accident," but Raymond clenched his fists. His whole body was shaking. And who would do something so horrible to a little girl? Silence filled the room. Camila hugged Lucy tighter, as if she could protect her even though she was unconscious. Martha tried to stay calm. She needs to be transferred. We don't have the necessary equipment to care for such a delicate case. There are specialists at the hospital in Riverside. Raymond took a deep breath, trying to think, but before he could answer, he heard what he didn't want to hear. Unfortunately, we don't have an ambulance available. He closed his eyes and covered his face with his hands. Then I'll take her right now. It's risky, said Martha. The road is long and her condition is very delicate. It's risky to leave her here with nothing, he replied, with a broken but firm voice. I'll take her. A few minutes later, Raymond was already carefully placing Lucy in the back seat of the car. Camila got in too, cradling her daughter in her arms as if she were a baby again. Her hands caressed the girl's hair, while her closed eyes remained motionless, and her breathing was so weak that it was almost impossible to tell if her chest was rising and falling. Raymond started the car, took a deep breath, and before pulling away, looked back. Hold her tight, Camila. Don't let her go. She just nodded, muttering a prayer. The car sped quickly down the narrow road. The engine roared, the tires kicking up dust. Raymond gripped the steering wheel tightly, dodging potholes, speeding more than he should have, his heart beat at the same pace as the needle on the speedometer. Camila cried silently, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Hang on, my girl. Hang on," she repeated softly, like a prayer. Time stood still. Every curve was dangerous. Every minute felt like an eternity. Raymond sweated, his eyes fixed on the road. But in his mind there was only one phrase repeated like a promise. "You're not going to die in my arms, Lucy. You're not going to die." And on that desperate journey to Riverside, amidst fear, faith, and love, three hearts beat together, one almost imperceptible, but still alive. The car braked in front of the Riverside Hospital. The tires were still smoking. Raymond got out, barely feeling his legs, opened the back door, and carried Lucy in his arms as if she were a piece of glass about to shatter. Camila came behind, sobbing, clutching his shirt. The nurses rushed over with a stretcher and carried the girl inside while the parents were detained at the emergency room door. Raymond tried to get in, pushing the guards aside. "She's my daughter. Let me in." A doctor put his hand on his shoulder. "Sir, trust us. We'll take care of her." Those minutes seemed like centuries. Raymond paced back and forth in the hallway with his hand over his face, murmuring prayers, promises, anything that came to mind. Camila sat limply, her body crumpled, crying uncontrollably. Suddenly, the door opened. A doctor in a white coat approached. His serious gaze froze the two parents. "Mr. Ortega." Raymond took a step forward, his voice stuck in his throat. "It's my daughter. How is she?" The doctor took a deep breath. "She's alive." Raymond closed his eyes. His legs gave way. He fell sitting on the nearest bench with his face in his hands. Tears flowed like a river. "Thank you, God. Thank God." Camila was also crying, but the doctor continued speaking, his words falling like stones. She suffered severe poisoning. Her body went into a deep coma. There is brain activity, yes, but we have to be realistic. There is a risk of damage. We don't know if she will wake up without any sequelae. Raymond raised his head slowly, his eyes red, unable to believe what he was hearing. "What do you mean, sequelae?" "The brain was unresponsive for a long time. We have to observe her, give her support, but she may never walk or talk again, or she may. Only time will tell." Camila brought her hands to her chest as if something had been stabbed into her. "No, please, my girl, no." Raymond slowly got up and approached the doctor with tears in his eyes. "Doctor," his voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. "I don't care if she can't walk. If she can't talk, none of that matters. Oh, I just want her to live, that's all." The doctor nodded respectfully. "We'll do everything we can." Raymond turned away, leaned against the cold wall of the hallway, and let himself fall to the floor. His whole body was shaking. He cried with his hands covering his face like a broken man. "Forgive me, Lucy," he murmured. "I should have protected you. I should have protected you." Camila knelt beside him, hugged him, and they cried together, immersed in the same pain and the same hope. And there, in the cold hospital hallway, time stood still. The girl was alive, but the future, destiny, the life that still remained, no one knew what it would be like. They only knew that they needed strength, strength to wait, to resist, and to believe that a miracle does not come alone. Camila sat on the hard chair in the hospital room, her eyes fixed on her daughter's pale face. Lucy was connected to machines. She breathed slowly, almost without moving, as if she were trapped somewhere between life and silence. Raymond slept curled up in a chair nearby, tired from fighting so hard that day. But Camila couldn't rest. Her heart ached, and her mind wouldn't stop racing. The doctor's words sounded like a hammer to her. It was poisoning. Someone did it on purpose. She closed her eyes and clenched her fingers together until they almost hurt. Then, as if someone had pulled a thread inside her memory, she remembered that Lucy had spent 2 days with Julian, her biological father. It was just a week before the fever. He had gotten permission from the judge. Visitation rights, they called it. She hated that word. She hated even more what it meant to hand over her daughter to a man who had promised never to let them near her again. Camila sighed deeply. She went back in time. She remembered when she was still pregnant 9 years ago. Discovering Julian's betrayal was like a stab in the back. She told the whole family, exposed him, embarrassed him in front of everyone. The man who swore eternal love left her for another woman while her belly grew. The whole town found out. He became a laughingstock. He lost his job, he lost respect, and she never forgave him. Then Raymond came into their lives. He accepted Lucy as his daughter from day one. He cared for her, protected her, loved her as if she were his own flesh and blood. But one day Camila had to tell the girl the truth. Lucy cried. She couldn't understand. How could Dad not be my dad? And Camila, with her heart broken into pieces, explained it to her. It was what was killing her inside now. Could that visit have opened such a big wound in her daughter's mind that it made her sick? Could the fever have been caused by sadness, by the shock, or not? She couldn't ignore it. The tests were clear. There was a substance in her body. Camila brought her hands to her face. Her whole body was shaking. "My God," she whispered, looking at her daughter. "What happened to you in that house?" She remembered Lucy's face when she came back from the visit. She was quiet, different. She didn't want to give many details. She only said that the other father gave her toys and showed her photos. Camila didn't press her, perhaps out of fear, perhaps because she couldn't bear it. Now, sitting in that hospital, watching her daughter fight for her life, regret overwhelmed her. "Forgive me, my girl," she whispered, crying. "I should have protected you from all this." Raymond moved in his chair, opened his eyes slowly, and saw his wife breaking down in tears. "Camila," he said in a hoarse voice. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, wiped away her tears, but couldn't hide them. "Raymond," her voice came out low and broken. "Do you remember that Lucy spent 2 days with Julian?" He remained silent. His heavy breathing filled the room. "It's true. Do you think it was him who said it quietly?" Camila nodded, looking down. She became strange, quiet, and then the fever came. Raymond got up slowly, walked over to his daughter's bed, and stared at her for several seconds. His jaw was clenched. Camila cried louder, hugging her knees. "I don't know, Raymond. I don't know. All I know is that since he came back, she hasn't been the same." Silence filled the room. Only the slow beeping of the machine broke the scene. Raymond closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and ran his hand over his forehead. My God, if he did something to her. His voice trembled with pain and rage. If he laid a finger on her. Camila sobbed, hiding her face in her hands. And in that cold room, between the sound of the machines and the tears, a question burned in the hearts of both of them. Lucy was sick from the pain of a truth she should never have known, or from something much more cruel. It was already late afternoon in Riverside, when Nurse Martha entered the room, carrying a clear plastic bag in her hands. Inside were Lucy's things that had been collected at the health center before the transfer. Small things. A rag doll, a blue notebook with scribbles, a faded pink bow. Camila looked up when she saw the bag. "These are her things that they forgot at the health center," Martha explained in a low, respectful voice. "I thought you might like to have them." Camila took the bag carefully, as if she were touching something sacred. She took out the doll, kissed it, and hugged it against her chest. Raymond remained silent, watching with tears in his eyes. It was then that Martha noted a folded piece of paper hidden inside the notebook, took it out, and gave it to Camila. It was among her drawings. Camila unfolded it slowly, not understanding. It was a photograph. Her heart stopped for a second. In the picture, Julian was smiling with his arm around two girls. They were both wearing identical dresses, and the most frightening thing was that they were identical. One of them was Lucy, without a doubt, but the other one wasn't. Camila put her hand over her mouth, unable to breathe properly. "Raymond," she whispered with a trembling voice. "Look at this." He came closer, took the photo from her hands, and opened his eyes in surprise. "No, it can't be." Camila began to tremble. Her whole body seemed to reject what she was seeing. "It's Lucy, but who's this other one?" Raymond stared at the photo as if searching for an explanation that didn't exist. The two girls were identical, the same shy smile, the same big eyes, the same way of holding hands. Who is this girl?" Raymond asked, almost in a whisper. Martha, who was watching from the side, frowned. "I thought she was just a friend of hers, but they look so much alike." Camila shook her head in shock, her lips trembling. "No, she's not just similar, she's the same. It's as if she were," and the words got stuck in her throat. Raymond left the photo on the bed and ran his hands over his face. "My God, what does this mean?" Camila held the photo tightly, as if she were afraid it would disappear. Tears began to fall without her realizing it. Why had she kept this hidden? Why had she never said anything? The room fell silent. All that could be heard was the slow beeping of the machine connected to Lucy's fragile body. Camila looked down at her daughter, lying motionless on the bed, and then looked back at the photo. "Raymond," she said, her voice breaking, "if that girl exists, if she's who I think she is, our life will never be the same again." Camila's heart began to beat fast. Her legs shook. She fell down on the edge of the hospital bed, clutching the photo to her chest, as if it would break. A deep cry escaped her, one of those cries that come from the soul, mixing pain with despair. "It can't be," she whispered. "It can't be." Raymond ran to her, frightened. "Camila, what's wrong? Tell me, who is this girl?" Camila looked up, her eyes full of tears, her voice almost breathless. "She's also my daughter, Raymond." He opened his eyes wide, unable to understand how she could also be his daughter. Camila covered her face with her hands, unable to breathe properly. When Lucy was born, she wasn't alone. There were two girls. Raymond was in shock. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The other one, Camila, was choking on her tears. The other one was called Daniela. "Julian told me she had died during childbirth, that she didn't make it. I never saw her face, Raymond. The coffin was closed. They said it was better that way. I believed him." Silence fell like a stone. Raymond breathed deeply. His chest moved heavily. He looked sometimes at Lucy in the bed, sometimes at the photo, and sometimes at Camila. "So, are you telling me," he said slowly in a hoarse voice, "that there might be another daughter alive?" Camila cried even harder, shaking her head. "I don't know, Raymond. I don't know. All I know is that I never saw her. I never held her in my arms. I just believed what Julian said." Raymond clenched his fists and began to pace back and forth, filled with rage and pain. "That man," he muttered. "That man ruined your life before." And now he stopped, looked at Camila, and took her by the shoulders. "Listen to what I'm going to say. We can't act with our heads in a cloud. We can't accuse anyone without proof or do anything stupid. This is very serious, very grave." Camila, still sobbing, grabbed his shirt. "What if she's alive, Raymond? And I have another daughter in this world, and I don't know it." He hugged her tightly, feeling her body shake all over. "Then we're going to find her, but not alone. We have to call the police. We have to talk to people who can investigate properly." Camila closed her eyes and cried on his shoulder, clutching the photo to her chest. Raymond held her tightly, as if he were preventing her from sinking. The constant beeping of the machines next to the bed reminded them that Lucy was still fighting. But now, in the midst of that pain, a new wound was opening. The possibility that a part of the family was lost, hidden, stolen. Raymond took a deep breath, looked at the photo on the bed, and said firmly, "No more secrets, no more silence. Now the truth has to come out. It has to." And on that cold hospital night, between the tears of a mother and the contained rage of a father, The certainty was born that that folded photo carried more than a memory. It carried a hidden past and a life that may never have been buried. The hospital corridor was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the distant sound of machines and the quick footsteps of nurses. Raymond was sitting in front of Lucy's room door with his arms crossed, watching like a soldier who cannot let his guard down. Suddenly, the sound of steady footsteps was heard in the corridor. When he looked up, Raymond's blood boiled. It was Julian. He had the same arrogant look as always. Now he was pretending to be concerned. "I came to see my daughter," Julian said in a low voice, but with a confidence that made Raymond's heart beat faster. Raymond stood up immediately, stood in front of the door, and blocked the way. "You're not coming in here, Julian. Don't make a scene." Julian sighed, pretending to be calm. "I just want to see her. That's all. She's my daughter, too." Raymond's face turned red with rage. "Your daughter," he said, almost spitting out the words. "You lost that right the day you abandoned the two of us." The tension rose. Camilla, who was inside the room, heard the voices and came running out. When she saw Julian standing there, she opened her eyes in surprise. "You!" she shouted, her voice trembling with fear and hatred. "How did you have the nerve to come here, Camilla?" Julian raised his hands as if asking for calm. "I just want to see Lucy. I didn't come here to fight." "Liar." She went after him, but Raymond grabbed her by the shoulders. "You're not going near her." The noise attracted the attention of nurses and patients. People began to come out of the rooms to look. The hallway, previously quiet, became a place of shouting. "Get out of here now," Raymond shouted, "before I throw you out myself." Julian didn't move, just hardened his face and said, "She's my daughter. You can't stop me from seeing her." Camilla cried and trembled all over. Raymond took a step forward with his fists clenched when two hospital guards appeared. "Gentlemen, calm down," they said, trying to separate them. Raymond pointed at Julian with his finger. "Call the police. Now. This man can't be here." The atmosphere became very tense. The screams could be heard throughout the floor. Some patients prayed quietly in fear. A few minutes later, two police officers arrived. They told everyone to step aside and asked for identification. Julian lifted his chin, trying to look calm. "I'm not committing any crime. I just wanted to see my daughter." Raymond was shaking with rage. His voice was hoarse from shouting. "That girl is between life and death because of people like you. You're not going to set foot in here." Suddenly, everything fell silent. And at that moment, Martha, the nurse, who had been watching everything with her eyes fixed on Julian, approached. Her face changed color, as if she had seen a ghost. "I know that man," she whispered. Everyone looked at her. Martha took a deep breath, her voice shaking, but firm. "I worked at the hospital when Lucy was born. I was there that night when the twins were born." Camilla couldn't breathe. Raymond looked at her, confused. Martha continued staring at Julian with serious eyes. "I remember it like it was yesterday. One of the girls disappeared from the system. She was erased from the death register. The papers were wrong, and everyone said it was a computer problem. But I knew it wasn't. It was never a mistake." Camilla covered her mouth in shock. Raymond took a step back, feeling his body tremble. Julian looked away for the first time, and the entire hallway fell silent. At that moment, doubt became certainty. The hidden past was about to explode, and no one could ignore it anymore. The hospital clock read almost midnight when the doctor returned to the room holding a thick folder of test results. His face was serious, heavy, as if he were carrying news that was difficult to tell. Raymond and Camilla stood up at the same time, both with red eyes from crying, their hearts beating very fast. Raymond swallowed hard. "Doctor, tell us what you found." The doctor opened the folder and took a deep breath. "We did detailed blood tests on Lucy. What we found leaves no doubt. She was exposed to a toxin, a chemical used to make the body appear completely paralyzed." Camilla covered her mouth in shock. "Total paralysis." "Yes," the doctor replied calmly. "Her heart is beating very slowly. She's barely breathing. She looks dead. It's temporary, but it can last for hours. If she doesn't get help, it can be fatal." Raymond took 2 steps back as if he had been hit. "Are you saying someone injected her with that?" The doctor closed the folder and looked at him firmly. "That substance doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's not a common medication. You can't buy it anywhere. It was administered by someone who knew what they were doing. Raymond felt the ground slipping away from under him, ran his hand through his hair, and began to pace back and forth, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling very quickly. "My God," he whispered, almost out of breath. They were going to bury my daughter alive." The words hung in the air, filled with horror. Camila cried silently, hugging herself, repeating under her breath, "It can't be. It can't be." Raymond couldn't take it anymore. He leaned against the cold wall of the hallway and let himself fall to the floor, his face in his hands. Tears streamed down his face uncontrollably, but they were different. They weren't just tears of pain, they were tears of rage, of not being able to believe it, of not being able to do anything. "Like I'm trash," he said in a broken voice, "as if my daughter was worth nothing, anything." Martha, the nurse who was watching everything closely, came over and knelt in front of him. She placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Raymond, listen. She didn't die. They couldn't erase her. Do you know why?" He looked up, his eyes filled with tears, trying to understand. "Because she fought," said Martha in a soft but firm voice. "Because she wanted to live. She survived because of the love she feels for you." The words hit him like an arrow. Raymond cried harder, but now he wasn't alone. Martha was hugging him. Camila also knelt down and hugged him from behind, the three of them united by pain and hope. In that hospital hallway, the night was very heavy, but one thing became clear in the midst of the darkness. Lucy was still there fighting death, showing that not even the cruelest poison can overcome the power of true love. It was early morning when two hospital workers in charge of cleaning the pediatric ward found something strange in the trash cart. Inside a black bag, hidden among gauze and used syringes, was a small transparent bottle. The label was almost worn away, but some letters could still be read in Spanish and English, technical words that were not from any common medication. One of the men frowned and held the vial up to the white light in the hallway. "Hey, this isn't normal medicine." The other older worker looked at it and got scared. "This shouldn't be here. We have to take it to the doctors." A few minutes later, the bottle was in the hands of Nurse Martha. She recognized it immediately. Her heart began to beat faster. "It's the same," she whispered, showing it to the doctor on duty. The same compound they found in the girl's blood. The news spread quickly. The director of the hospital ordered an immediate review of the security cameras. In a small office in front of a black and white screen, Raymond and Camila were present. They were breathing heavily, as if the air had been removed from the room. Martha and a local police officer were with them reviewing the video. The images showed the pediatric ward corridors on the day Lucy arrived. Time passed quickly, nurses running, doctors coming and going until a familiar person appeared. "Pause," said Martha, pointing to the screen. "It's him." Raymond approached the screen, his face filled with rage. Julian was there. Julian was walking down the hallway wearing a dark jacket, his hands in his pockets. He looked from side to side as if waiting for the right moment. He approached the door to Lucy's room, stopped, hesitated. Then he tried to open the door slowly, but he couldn't get in. The recording showed nurses passing by all the time, Martha entering sometimes, even Raymond leaving and coming back. There was never a moment when the room was alone. "He didn't go in," Camila said in a low voice with tears in her eyes. Thank God he was never alone with her. But Raymond couldn't take his eyes off the screen. He felt the blood boiling inside him. But he was here. He came. He tried. The police officer jotted down some quick notes. This confirms that he was at the scene, and now with the jar they found, the pieces are starting to fall into place. Raymond clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. That man wanted to kill my daughter. He wanted to see her buried alive. Camila, in shock, covered her face and cried loudly. Martha put a hand on her shoulder. "You're not crazy. The evidence is coming out." The silence that followed was very heavy. Raymond took a deep breath, trying not to explode. Camila was shaking, and there, in front of the screen, and that dirty jar found in the trash, the truth began to come out like an open wound. Someone had planned everything, and Julian was increasingly at the center of that darkness. The private hospital room was silent, lit only by a yellow light from the ceiling. Raymond and Camila were sitting next to each other, but they weren't saying anything. He stared at the floor with eyes red with rage and helplessness. She held between her fingers the crumpled photo of Lucy and the unknown girl, as if it were the only proof that she wasn't going crazy. In the midst of this heavy atmosphere, the door opened slowly. A woman with a worn leather folder under her arm entered. It was the social worker in charge of the case. She walked with firm steps, but her face showed the seriousness of someone who brings difficult truths. "Mr. and Mrs. Ortega," she said, greeting them with a respectful gesture. "I need to show you something." She placed a thick envelope on the table. Raymond looked up immediately. "What is that?" The woman sighed and took out the papers slowly. "They are old adoption records. Julian Mendoza is listed as responsible. The girl's name is Daniela." Camila's heart stopped for a second. She put her hand to her chest, unable to breathe properly. Daniela repeated in a broken voice, "My God." Raymond closed his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. "So he does exist." The social worker nodded, but her voice became even more serious. "I didn't stop there. I checked the information on the places where the adoption was supposedly carried out. The hospital, the juvenile court, even the civil registry office. And all the addresses are fake. He created a network of false documents to legally keep his own daughter." Camila burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "He stole her from me. He stole my daughter." Raymond stood up and walked over to the window, trying to calm his breathing. His voice came out hoarse, full of contained rage. "So on top of cheating on me, on top of destroying our life, that man also took one of your daughters away from you and hid her from the world." Camila didn't answer. She just cried. The social worker continued pulling the last sheet of paper from the envelope. "The strongest lead I found was an address in Phoenix, a simple house in a remote area. All signs point there." The silence that followed was deafening. Raymond slowly returned to the table, picked up the piece of paper with the address, and stared at it. "Phoenix," he murmured. "So that's where he hid Daniela." Camila, still crying, grabbed his arm. "Raymond, no. What if it's true? What if she really is alive?" He looked at his wife with eyes full of tears, but determined. "Then let's go get her back, whatever it takes." The worker closed the folder slowly and said, "I know this hurts, but the truth is finally coming out." Camila cried uncontrollably, repeating the name of her lost daughter, as if she wanted to leave it floating in the air. "Daniela, my girl, my girl." Raymond hugged her tightly, as tears also escaped him. The weight of that truth was unbearable. Lucy was fighting for her life, and Daniela was somewhere living a life that should never have been hers. At that moment, in the silence of the hospital, it became clear that the tragedy did not end with Lucy. There was another girl, another stolen life, another heart, waiting to be rescued. Camila sat on the edge of the hospital bed going through a bag with the few things they had brought from Julian's house. There were toys, clothes folded in a hurry, a little doll with a loose arm, and among all that, a small blue notebook with worn stickers and dog-eared corners. It looked like just a girl's notebook, one of those filled with innocent doodles. She opened it without thinking much, trying to distract herself from the anguish. But as she leafed through it, the colorful drawings began to change tone. The first pages had little houses, flowers, and hearts. Further on, the lines became more confused, strong strokes, angry scribbles, until the words appeared. Camila's eyes widened. "I don't want to go back to that house." His hand trembled. He turned the page quickly. Another drawing, a little girl next to a tall man with no face. Below it, the phrase, "My new dad pricks me with something ugly." His heart began to beat very fast. A chill ran down his back. His hands turned cold. "My God," he whispered, putting his hand to his mouth. "Lucy." Tears fell without her realizing it. She kept looking, desperate, finding more drawings full of pain hidden among the little girl's drawings. Small figures crying, words written in fear. "I'm scared. I want to go to Mommy." Raymond entered the room at that moment and saw Camila trembling with the notebook in her hands. "What happened?" he asked, already afraid of the answer. She raised the notebook with trembling hands. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Look at this, Raymond. Our daughter wrote this." He took the notebook and began to read. With each sentence, his face grew more serious, his gaze heavier. When she got to my new dad, he pokes me with something ugly. He closed the notebook tightly. That bastard. His voice came out hoarse, broken. He did that to her. Camila cried loudly, sobbing, clinging to his arm. Raymond, our daughter, asked for help and we didn't see her. He hugged her tightly, holding back his own tears. But now, we're going to see. Now we're going to scream for her. That same day, with the help of the social worker, they went to the prosecutor's office. The notebook, the photo, the fake documents, everything was handed over as evidence. Raymond placed the papers on the prosecutor's desk with steady hands, but his eyes were filled with tears. This isn't just paper. It's my daughter's life. He almost killed her. He stole another woman's daughter. I want justice. The prosecutor quickly read the notes, glanced through the notebook carefully, and the silence in the room was broken only by a loud say. "We accept the complaint," he said firmly. "From now on, Julian Mendoza is under formal investigation." A few hours later, an arrest warrant was issued. Raymond and Camila waited anxiously, embracing each other, believing that justice would finally be served. But the news came as a bucket of cold water. When the police went to Julian's house, he was no longer there. He had fled. Camila burst into tears while Raymond punched the wall, screaming in pain and rage. "Coward, you can't hide forever." And at that moment, even though the law was now on their side, fear filled the air once again. The man who had destroyed their lives was now free, hiding somewhere, and his shadow continued to haunt the family like a never-ending nightmare. Night fell heavily on the hospital. In the room, the silence was broken only by the constant beeping of the machines connected to Lucy's fragile body. Raymond sat next to the bed, holding her hand as if he were holding on to his own life. Camila slept from exhaustion in an armchair, her head fallen to one side, her face still wet with tears. Raymond stroked his daughter's fingers, whispering softly, "Hang on, my girl, Daddy's here, don't leave me." Suddenly, the sound of the machines changed. A quick, high-pitched beep cut through the air. Lucy's chest rose and fell uncontrollably, as if she were fighting to breathe. Her face turned even paler. "No! Oh my God! No!" Raymond shouted, jumping to his feet. "Help! Someone! Help!" Camila woke up with a start and ran to the bed. "What's wrong?" Her voice trembled. "Raymond!" He clutched the girl's hand tightly, his heart beating fast. "She can't breathe, my love. She can't." The monitor began to beep faster. The numbers dropped on the screen. The sound filled the stifling room like a countdown. Raymond leaned over his daughter, tears falling onto the white sheet. "Don't leave me, my girl. Please." His voice broke. "You're my life, Lucy. Fight a little longer, please." Camila cried desperately, stroking her daughter's hair. "My love, Mommy's here. Don't be afraid." The door flew open. Doctors and nurses rushed in, pushing equipment. One of them pushed Raymond and Camila firmly aside. "Please, get out of the room." "No, don't take me away," Raymond shouted, but two nurses held him back. "She's my daughter. Don't leave her alone." They dragged him into the hallway where he fell to his knees, crying with his hands over his face. Camila was next to him, screaming her daughter's name. On the other side of the door, he could hear running, the doctor's rapid commands, the sound of oxygen being connected, the monitor continuing to beep rapidly, suffocatingly. Raymond pounded the cold hospital floor with his fist. "Don't take her, sir. Don't take her." Time seemed to stand still. Every second was an eternity. The hallway was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by Camila's desperate cries and Raymond's ums. And in there, behind that closed door, Lucy's life hung by a thread. The constant sound of the monitor sounded like a cruel warning. Death was lurking once again, and the little girl's struggle seemed increasingly weak in the face of the darkness. It was dawn when 3 police patrol cars arrived in the narrow streets of Phoenix. Reports with the address written down led to a simple house with high walls, almost hidden among other buildings. The iron gate was locked with chains. Curious neighbors peered through the windows as the police broke down the entrance. Inside the house, the atmosphere was dark. The floor was rough cement. The walls were peeling, and it smelled of dampness and neglect. The living room was almost empty, with only an old armchair and a small table. The police split up and searched every corner until a locked door at the back caught their attention. "Here," said one of the officers, knocking loudly. There was no answer, so they broke it down. Inside was a small room with a narrow bed, an old wardrobe, and broken toys scattered on the floor. Sitting in a corner cowering was a skinny girl with pale skin and long, tangled hair. Her large, frightened eyes stared at the men in uniform. It was Daniela. She had the same face as Lucy, the same age, the same delicate expression, but she looked different. Her eyes were sunken from so much fear, her body fragile, like someone who has never known freedom. Next to her, a young woman appeared, frightened. She was the one who took care of the girl. "Don't hurt her," she begged, trembling. "She didn't do anything. She just lived here." A policeman crouched down in front of Daniela and tried to speak in a soft voice. "Calm down, little one. We're here to help you." Daniela didn't answer, just hugged an armless doll, hiding half her face behind it. Her tear-filled eyes said it all. That girl never went to school, never played in the street, grew up like a shadow, trapped under Julian's control. The scene was heartbreaking. The officers carefully took her out of the car, covering her with a jacket. Daniela looked around confused, as if she were seeing the world for the first time. Meanwhile, the news reached Riverside. At the hospital, Raymond was sitting alone in the waiting room, staring into space when his cell phone rang. It was the social worker. He answered with a hoarse, tired voice. "Yes." On the other end, her voice sounded firm, but emotional. "Raymond, we found Daniela. She's alive." His heart stopped for a moment. He pressed the phone to his ear, unable to speak. "How is she?" he managed to ask in a low, very fragile voice. "But she's breathing. She's with us. We're going to take her to the hospital." Raymond closed his eyes. Tears came silently, wetting his tired face. He didn't scream. He didn't make a scene. He just cried, silently. His body bent as if he were carrying the heaviest weight of his life. The assistant then sent a photo by cell phone. Raymond opened it. His heart almost stopped. On the screen was Daniela, the same eyes as Lucy, the same smile hidden despite her fear. It was like seeing his daughter twice. Raymond brought his hand to his mouth, the cell phone trembling. "My God, they're identical," he cried quietly, hiding his face in his hands. He didn't know whether to thank God or break down completely. The joy of knowing that Daniela was alive came along with fear. How could he bring that girl home after so many years of lies? Would she accept him? And would Lucy have the strength to live through this reunion? Raymond sat there clutching his cell phone to his chest. "I have 2 daughters," he whispered, his voice breaking. 2. And the tears fell without stopping, because amidst so much tragedy, life still insisted on showing that the truth, no matter how hard it is, always finds a way out. The morning started off heavy, but different. At the hospital, Raymond and Camila were waiting for news when they received a call from the prosecutor's office. On the other end of the line, the investigator's voice was firm. "We did it. Julian Mendoza was arrested trying to cross the border." Raymond closed his eyes and took a deep breath, as if a great weight had been lifted from his chest. Camila brought her hand to her mouth as tears ran silently down her cheeks. "So it's over?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Not entirely," replied the investigator. "The process is just beginning, but he can't escape now." Shortly thereafter, the television in the hospital waiting room showed the images. Julian was being escorted away, handcuffed, his gaze cold, showing no sign of remorse. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes went off, but he kept his head high, as if he were a victim and not the culprit responsible for so much pain. Raymond clenched his fists with rage still alive. "That man," he muttered. "It was never about Lucy. It was never about Daniela. It was only out of hatred, out of revenge." And it was true. In the testimonies, it was clear. Julian could never bear being exposed, losing his job, the respect of the whole town. 9 years of feeding resentment. Taking Camila's daughter away from her wasn't enough. He wanted to destroy them both. Meanwhile, Daniela was taken to a shelter under protective custody. She was thin, scared, but alive. A psychologist approached her calmly, sitting down next to her in a colorful room filled with toys that seemed too new for her hands, which were no longer used to them. "Daniela, "We need to talk," said the professional in a soft voice. "You have a story that no one ever told you." The girl looked at her with wide eyes, full of fear and curiosity. "A story? Yes. You have a mom who never forgot you, and you have a sister your age, just like you, who is in the hospital right now. I think you met her a week ago." Daniela remained silent, hugging the old doll she had brought from Phoenix. The psychologist continued, "You weren't abandoned. They took you away, but now the truth is coming out." The words were delicate, but each syllable seemed to light up a little light in the girl's eyes. Back at the hospital, Raymond entered Lucy's room with weary steps. The beeping of the machines still filled the air. Her body remained motionless. He took his daughter's hand, as he did every day, and rested his forehead on hers. "My girl, they've arrested him. You're free. No one is going to hurt you ever again. All that's left is for you to come back to us." And it was in that almost imperceptible moment that it happened. A fragile movement, so small that Raymond thought it was his imagination, but it wasn't. Lucy's fingers gently squeezed his hand. Raymond's heart began to beat fast. Tears immediately began to flow. "Camila!" he shouted, his voice breaking. "Camila, come quickly!" She ran over, agitated, and when she saw her, she put her hands to her face and cried like never before. "She's reacting," Raymond cried, smiling through his tears. "I knew it, my love. I knew you were going to fight until the end." In that room full of machines, the impossible was happening once again. Lucy, after days of being motionless, was giving the first sign that she still wanted to live, and between pain and hope, a ray of light was beginning to stitch together what had been broken, because justice had already taken its course. Daniela had been found, and now Lucy was also showing that she wasn't going to give up. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lucy's eyelashes moved. Camila sat up straight with her eyes wide open, unable to believe what she was seeing. Raymond whispered in a broken voice, "Raymond, look!" He jumped up, his heart beating fast. The two leaned over the bed, and slowly, as if awakening from a very long dream, Lucy opened her eyes. Her gaze was confused, weak, but alive. "Lucy," Camila cried, and smiled at the same time. "My girl, you came back." The girl blinked several times, trying to focus on her mother's face. With effort, her lips moved, and a very soft voice came out. "Where am I?" Raymond couldn't hold back the tears. He squeezed her hand tightly, kissed her little fingers, and replied with a broken voice, "With us, my love, with us." Tears fell down his face, wetting his daughter's hand. Camila stroked the girl's hair, repeating softly, "Thank you, sir. Thank you." Lucy, still confused, looked at them both, trying to understand. Her breathing was weak, but her gaze was already searching for answers. Then, with the innocence that only a child has, she asked, "Where's my other daddy?" Silence fell like a stone in the room. Camila felt a lump in her throat. Her throat closed up. Raymond looked down, squeezing his daughter's hand even tighter, trying to hold back the pain that question caused him. Camila took a deep breath, wiped her tears away with her hand, and leaned forward, looking into the girl's eyes. "Sweetheart, he is far away now. You're safe. You're with us." Lucy blinked slowly as if trying to understand the answer. Raymond, beside her, was breathing heavily, fighting not to cry out loud. He kissed her hand again and said softly, just so she could hear him, "I'll never let you go, my little girl, never again." And in that mixture of pain and relief between the innocence of a question and the promise of a father, the miracle was confirmed. Lucy was back, not unscathed, not without wounds, but alive, and that was already the greatest gift life could give them. The hospital hallway was filled with quick footsteps and whispers when the door to Lucy's room opened. The social worker entered first with a careful look. Behind her, hugging an old doll to her chest, came Daniela, skinny, shy, her eyes frightened, but alive. Raymond and Camila held their breath. It was like seeing Lucy duplicated, a reflection in flesh and blood. The same face, the same big eyes, only marked by the sadness of a stolen childhood. Lucy was lying down, still weak, but when she saw the girl standing in the doorway, Her eyes lit up in a different way, as if something inside her had awakened. "Mommy," she whispered, pointing with her trembling hand. "It's me." Camila knelt down beside the bed, tears already streaming down her face. "No, sweetheart," she said, her voice breaking. "She is your sister." "Your sister!" Lucy opened her eyes as if she couldn't believe it. Daniela hesitantly took a step forward, then another. The two looked at each other in silence for a few seconds. It was a silence full of recognition, of something that couldn't be explained, as if they had known each other forever. Then Lucy smiled a weak smile, the first real smile since she woke up. "Sister." Daniela dropped the doll on the floor, ran to the bed, and threw herself on top of it, hugging her sister tightly. Lucy hugged her with her little arms, squeezing her as if they had waited their whole lives for that moment. Raymond turned his face away to hide his tears, but he couldn't. Camila cried shamelessly, covering her mouth with her hands. The two girls hugged each other as if they were one, as if the lost time could be sewn back together there. At that moment, Daniela cried softly, and Lucy stroked her hair, still weak, as if she wanted to comfort the sister she never had by her side. "I knew it," Lucy whispered in a very soft voice. She felt that she wasn't alone. Raymond approached slowly, placed his hand on both of them, and said with tears in his eyes, "You will never be alone again." Camila joined them, kissing her daughters' foreheads. The room was filled with crying, shy smiles, and a love that needed no words. "Hello, my daughter. I love you. I have always loved you. Forgive me. I didn't know about you." Everyone cried. It was the beginning of something that had been missing all their lives. Two sisters, finally together, united not by a past of pain, but by the promise of a future holding hands. And in that strong embrace, everyone understood that nothing could be stronger than the bond that fate had tried to break. But it couldn't. The courtroom was silent when Raymond and Camila entered holding hands. At their side was Lucy in a wheelchair, still recovering, and Daniela, shy, clutching her sister's hand tightly, as if afraid of being separated again. On the other side, the social worker held a stack of documents. The judge, a middle-aged man, watched every detail carefully. Camila took a deep breath, her voice broken but firm. "Your Honor, I'm not here to ask for a favor. I'm here to ask for justice. Daniela is my biological daughter. They took her away from me without my knowledge. I want her back with me, to grow up with her sister, with the family that has always been hers." Raymond stood up immediately. His hands were shaking, but his eyes shone with conviction. "Your Honor, I am not their biological father, but I have dedicated my entire life to Lucy. She is my daughter in my heart, and Daniela is now too. I just want a chance to give them what they need most. A safe home, full of love." The judge looked at the two girls. Lucy smiled, albeit weakly, stroking her sister's fingers. Daniela, still frightened, hid behind her, but her curious eyes peeked out from time to time. The room fell into a heavy silence until the judge banged his gavel. Request granted. As of today, Daniela is now legally the daughter of Camila and Raymond Ortega, and so is Lucy. Julian loses all access to the girls. Camila burst into tears, hugging her daughters. Raymond closed his eyes and let the tears fall silently, like someone releasing years of pain. Lucy and Daniela hugged each other tightly, as if sealing a promise never to be apart again. Months later, they moved. The family left the city that held so many wounds and went to start over in another place. The new house was not luxurious, but it was full of life. Light walls, simple curtains, the smell of fresh bread coming from the kitchen. On the door, a small sign with the hand-painted names, Lucy and Daniela Ortega. Two names, two stories that were reunited in the courtyard, leaning against the wall. Two new bicycles, still shiny. The girls ran from one side to the other, laughing loudly. The sound of childhood finally returned. Raymond watched them from the terrace with a proud smile. Camila approached and rested her head on his shoulder. "We did it, Raymond," she said in a soft, emotional voice. "They were born together, and now they're going to live together." He put his arm around her shoulders, watching his daughters run free. Nothing will ever separate them again. And for the first time in a long time, the house was not filled with pain. It was filled with laughter, with the future, with hearts that after so much suffering could finally heal. The sun shone softly through the hospital room window. There were no more machines connected to Lucy's body, just the smell of disinfectant mixed with flowers brought by the neighbors. She could already take short steps, still weak, but smiling. It was time to leave. Raymond placed the small suitcase in the corner of the room, while Camilla lovingly folded her daughter's clothes. Daniela, sitting on the couch, watched everything with curious eyes, still getting used to the idea of no longer being alone in the world. But Lucy was focused on something else. With her tongue between her teeth and her brow furrowed, she wrote slowly on a piece of crumpled paper. The pencil slipped from her fingers from time to time, but she didn't give up. Each word seemed to carry the weight of a secret kept in her heart. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" asked Raymond, approaching with a tired smile, but full of tenderness. Lucy looked up with bright eyes and hid the paper behind her back. "Nothing, Dad. Surprise." He laughed softly, stroking her hair. Minutes later, when the nurse came in to hand over the last discharge papers, Lucy called her dad with a shy gesture. She gave him the paper folded in four, her hands trembling, but her gaze determined. "This is for you." Raymond frowned, opened the paper slowly. The girl's handwriting was crooked, some words crossed out, but the message was clear. "Thank you for not leaving me alone. Thank you for not letting me die. I'm happy." His heart broke. Raymond brought his hand to his mouth, his eyes filled with tears, unable to say anything. The tears ran down his cheeks, wetting the paper. Camilla came over, reading over Raymond's shoulder, and also began to cry. She hugged her daughter tightly, repeating, "I love you, my girl. I love you so much." Raymond knelt down next to the bed, still holding the paper in his hands, and kissed Lucy's forehead. "No, my love. Thank you. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for coming back to me." He folded the paper carefully, as if it were a treasure, and put it in the pocket of his shirt, right over his heart. "It will stay here forever," he said, tapping his chest. "I'll never take it out of here." Lucy smiled, and Daniela came over to hug her sister. The three of them joined in a tight embrace while Raymond, still on his knees, wrapped his strong arms around them all. The room, which had so often been a place of pain, was now filled with love, and in Raymond's pocket, that little piece of paper became an eternal reminder. Life, although fragile, is the greatest miracle. And if it were you, if you were the father, would you have the courage to believe in the impossible? To listen to your heart when everyone said it was crazy? And if you were the mother, would you have the strength to face secrets from the past, even if they hurt like an open wound? And if you were Lucy, would you have fought to the end, even though everything seemed lost? Write in the comments what you would do in the place of Raymond, Camilla, or even Lucy. Your opinion can touch the hearts of many people who will also read this. And don't forget, if this story moved you deeply, click the bell to receive future videos. Here you will always find stories that excite, that make you cry, but also make you believe that life can still surprise you. Now take a look at the videos on the screen. See you in the next video.